Salute Nick Streets. Let's talk about this game as the New York Knicks drop their second game to the Orlando Magic on the road and are now 1-5 on the road. And a frustrating game, man. There was flashes in this one, injuries to talk about. The officiating was poor tonight, but the New York Knicks defense was even worse. Lots to go with this one as the Knicks lose 121-133. Like I said, frustrating. The Knicks, had 2 days off, and I think that's the most disappointing thing. I've got to give the Magic credit. I think offensively, defensively, they looked more comfortable, but the Knicks had their moments in this one. They got a spark from the bench, from Clarkson, Kolek, but some struggles from most of the starters, and especially defensively, guys, in this one. OG Anunoby obviously really been missing defensively. The last game, the Knicks were lucky to win in Dallas, but that's in the past, right? Mike Brown's got a lot of things to stew on and look at to clean up. Welcome in to the post-game live. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button on the way in, and I will shout you guys out. Get your thoughts as we talk about the road ahead, right? We have a poll in tonight's chat. How you feeling about this one? Option number one, the defense just not good enough to win. Option number two, we're really missing OG and Deuce McBride. Option number three, Shamet's hurt, man. Shake my head. Trades are on the way. Fourth option, last but not least, the refs changed this game, man. Sum up how you best feel after this. The Knicks are at 9-6 still, but we know the East is a real log jam. We're going to talk about that tonight too. Around the league, this is a real important game, for the Knicks to get. But the Magic, with no Paolo Banchero, rode the hot hand of Franz Wagner, right? And he was a real handful, right? The Knicks just could not string together enough stops, right? It was a topsy-turvy game, but I really did feel like the officiating, changed this ball game. Shez V, welcome in. Chris Connors, salute. Says no OG, no Deuce, no Shamet. No good. I think we got a spark from some guys, and obviously Mike Brown's going to have to really start to go deeper into the bench. I thought Kolek took his chance. Yabusele just continues to struggle. Defensively, he's unplayable at the moment. Offensively, he's not really giving you much either. I thought Clarkson's really been solid for the most part and a solid pickup, but he has his limitations as well. I don't think Hart's minutes were great tonight, but look, he showed a lot of fight and a lot of hustle. I think the Knicks didn't play a great game with their head, right? So we got Suggs into foul trouble. He had his third foul, fam, at the very start of the third quarter. Like basically the first possession, I think Jalen Suggs picked up his third foul. And you thought, okay, if we can just get him into his fourth foul into the third quarter with the way he's playing aggressive defense. But the Knicks just weren't smart, offensively. And we really had to work hard, for a bucket every single time. But defensively, it was even more difficult because Magic were pushing the break. They were getting, easier buckets in transition. And the Knicks just, trying to go toe-to-toe, blow for blow, in a situation where the Magic just had more weapons tonight, which is disappointing to say that with the Knicks team with Brunson and Cat. But I guess you go further down the bench and the Magic just got more role players really feeling comfortable at home. The Knicks obviously dropped a game earlier to the Magic at home, and there's 2 more games in the season series. Look, 9-6 ain't a bad start, but it's the kind of way we are looking at times. We ain't going to string together a whole lot of wins with the way we're playing defense. Mitchell Robinson not able to play, longer minutes, and him not looking, in full rhythm yet is a concern as well, right? As we see Tyler Kolek take some chances. Let us know how you feel about that. Appreciate everyone in the building. Condeska says, I was at the game, disappointed. No doubt, man. I feel for you. Let us know any other insights. Appreciate you coming through. Um, Look, firstly, I wanna obviously, send my, thoughts and prayers to Landry Shamet. Right. So for those that missed it, it looked like he did the shoulder again. Carbon copy. It looked like he fought through a screen, and the shoulder just, man, came out of place, which they talk about can happen, if you don't get the surgery. But we'll see. The Knicks report that tests and further scans will take place, and they'll know by tomorrow the severity of Landry Shamet's shoulder injury. But it looks like a dislocation. Maybe it's not as extreme. We hope for the best, and we see what happens. But look, Diawara got some moments. Dardier even got in for a little bit, but I think we've got to play some more defenders, and maybe sacrifice Yabusele's minutes right now. I thought Kolek and Clarkson. I'll keep that going as we see Mitch get a nice alley-oop. Look, Deuce McBride. On to the next thing. Deuce McBride only out today with illness, so nothing serious there. Prayers for Deuce, and hopefully he's feeling better real quick. But Deuce was questionable before the game, and he missed due to illness only. So that is one silver lining, that it does look like we'll get a Deuce back, in the near future. But OG Anunoby, look, I tweeted this out. There's a reason he got paid, serious money, and we see a great defensive possession from Diawara in this one. We'll go through the pros, the cons, the negatives in this one. The good, the bad, the ugly. But look, there were some flashes from Diawara on this possession, but it was few and far between from the leaders, right? Cat, defensively poor. Mitch, pretty poor as well. Brunson, Hart, Mikal Bridges, just not enough to overcome the size, the ball movement of Orlando. But look, it was a close game with about, 8 minutes to go, 7 minutes to go. The Knicks were down 3. They made a little run, but the story of this one is just not able to string together enough stops, as was the case in Dallas, right? We're going to look ahead to the schedule. Get your thoughts and comments, questions in. Right now, leading in the poll, how are you feeling after tonight? Number one, 62% say the defense is not good enough to win, and that's fair enough. Second thing is the refs changed the game at 25%. 12% say we just missed Deuce and OG right now. Look, on the Landry Shamet front, guys, as I pull up in the spotlight, for tonight, in the spotlight, I've got some guys that are really missing for us. And OG Anunoby, we know, he's out, and he's going to be out for an extended time. Hopefully we'll get some updates on that real soon. He was set to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, right? But Landry Shamet tonight, fam, looks like he did the shoulder again, and that could be a season. Hopefully not. It could be a season-ending injury. We'll wait to find out tomorrow, man. As I have in the poll, man, Shamet's hurt. I think the Knicks do got to be active this trade deadline, whether it be buyout market or a look at adding to the depth. Right, I don't think Yabusele is giving us what we expected, and that's no lie. Deuce McBride been in and out a little bit, but his play's been solid. Deuce will get back in action, but we really can't afford to be without some of these big guys. Big time role players for the New York Knicks. Clarkson stepped up, Kolek as well, but do we need to play some Huck Porty? Tosan, McCullough. Is Dardier going to get more of a chance? Is Diawara going to get more of a chance? You guys let me know. Buzzer Beater says, where is the pick and roll? Pick and pop with Brunson and Cat. Yeah, great point. I do want to talk about the offense, and I do think it's starting to regress, back to more of last year's offense. Smaller sample, obviously, but we are just trying to play a lot faster, but a lot of isolation. I'm not noticing enough player movement, enough ball movement and player movement at the moment. Obviously, since Brunson's return, once again, guys, it's been another adjustment to make. Johnny Cheever in the house, salute, appreciate you. coming through. Yeah, everyone's wishing their prayers up to Landry Shamet as well. New York City 89 says, I feel this is why we don't play some of our kids, because Muhammad Diawara literally was the cause of the Magic going on that 14-0 run. Yeah, there were some rough stretches. And that is one of the reasons why, coaches are reluctant, but in shorter spurts, I do think we've got to ride the growing pains, fam. I do think Diawara, we saw a couple of good possessions. I do think early in the season, this is where you got to prep for the playoffs, fam, and maybe live with some of the growing pains, because you have to try to realize, okay, how are we going to get better defensively? You've got to, play your guys in a balanced lineup, defense and offense. Right now, we're a little bit too extreme the other way. Right, there was a lineup tonight of like Kat, Yabusele, Kolek, Clarkson, and I'm like, man, we're not going to get any stops. We're not going to get any stops playing that lineup. Not going to roll the video, but as you see this still, Landry Shamet, he knew what took place straight away, fam, and it's prayers up and speedy recovery. We know he's a rehab demon, and Landry's going to give it his best, man, to fight back and get back. But it's onto the front office now, man. It's out of our hands. The front office has really got to look at, the trade season, which is going to start off early this season, I feel. December, fam. Was it December 10, December 9? You can start to, trade some of the newer free agents and all of that. Maybe we'll hear some talk about a Yabusele. We have a super chat from my guy AP. Salute, AP. Great to see you come through. AP says, CT, they're bad. They're bad right now. And defensively, we're lacking. Offensively, I wouldn't say we're too bad. Offensively, we can get our buckets. It's just, what are we going to do the other end, fam? Now, the fortunate thing is it's early in the season. We're still 9-6. Remember, I'm a glass half full kind of guy, but I don't sugarcoat things either, man. I give you the truth. I am concerned to a certain degree, but I'm not like panicking. I'm not hitting the panic button, but I'm definitely concerned, fam. My concern level is probably at a 6.5 right now. I keep it at an even keel, usually a 5 out of 10. My concern level, it's a healthy concern, normally at 5. I think it's a 6.5 right now, because there's some correctable things, but there's also a lot of things where it's like, okay, Yabusele's had 15 games now. Very underwhelming start to the season. Now, we do have some options on the bench that Mike Brown can look to. Unfortunately, it could be some growing pains because there's inexperience. I would like to see Huck Porty start to play more. If Mitch can't play at an intense level for a prolonged period, I get that. That's what comes with Mitch right now. So then, okay, play some other defensive, big men. Because Cat at the 5, the zone has its moments, but the zone defense, when teams get used to that look, they are going to tear you apart. They're going to tear you apart, Johnny Chiba says, flashback to last year's offensive stagnation, lack of ball movement, scaredy cat. I do think there's some chemistry issues, we've got to continue to work on that. Danny Landers, salute, says ISO Brunson again as well. Shea Signature, salute. Real King, salute, everyone in the building. Great to see you come through. Unfortunate, loss tonight. We do have a couple of softer games coming up, which we'll look at. We've got Brooklyn. We've got to get right. Charlotte. And then we do have the Milwaukee, the huge NBA Cup game, which could make or break the NBA Cup in-season tournament situation with Milwaukee, right? But it's 2 games against Orlando. I do think they're one of the measuring sticks right now in terms of, two-sided team. They could play on both sides. Are they a better team without Paolo? Definitely the floor spacing is tough to guard. I do think Orlando might be better offensively without Paolo right now. Magic fans would be best to chime in on that. But Paolo Banchero, is a bully to the rack, we know, but the way they're spacing the floor out, and they're able to play faster as well. So questions need to be asked with Orlando as well. But Detroit, they're on a tear right now. The Toronto Raptors are really getting hot, but it's so early in the season. That's why my panic is only at my concern level is only at 6.5 because a couple wins in a row, we're back to 11-6. We're probably second or third in the East. So that is a real swing situation out there in the East, fam. But we are mediocre defensively, and we ain't going to win nothing playing this defense. Tony says Knicks just not that good, mediocre defensively. Definitely not a championship contender. We're not looking like one, fam, Tony. I'm not going to say we're not a championship contender because it's just so early, but I see that, there's a certain level that we can lock in and play at a higher intensity, but that doesn't mean our defensive, shortcomings are going to disappear. I mean, I think with Mitch, Cat, we got things to figure out. Do you play more Trey Jemison, Huck Bordy, some extra minutes instead of Yabusele? We could do that. Like I said, there's going to be some buyout guys. I never felt like the roster that we started the season with is going to end the season. Now, I don't think we're going to do no blockbuster. I do think the Giannis thing is something to look at for the summer. But right now, I felt like, they still have the 15th man that they can sign in April. But I do think a guy like a Dardier, Kolek, something, Yabusele, something just seems like it's going to happen at the trade deadline, maybe even earlier. Now, I'm not pushing the panic button because we're 9-6. We're still above 500. But in terms of, looking like a championship contender, we're definitely not we're not even in third gear right now, man. I think we're stuck in second gear right now. And maybe you agree with me or disagree, but I do think we have more gears we can get to. But unfortunately, the regular season is going to expose you if you're not locked in, every single game. And some teams are locked in all the time. You see the Magic, they were really locked in, Other teams are looking at the Knicks and they seem to get up against the New York Knicks, It's no different from last season. Knicks were one of the favorites, and we're not matching that same intensity. Yeah, Kodeska as well says, I was there, I left, down 18, left early. Looked like there was a lot of energy in the building, fam. Fans were going back and forth. We even had MVP chants for JB at the line. But yeah, the Knicks are struggling from the stripe. They need to hit those free throws as well. And I do think what I notice, guys, is when teams aren't shooting good at the free throw line, as the Knicks shot 22 of 28, better than last game, but still, it's usually a sign that the team is playing tight. They're playing too tight. The panic or the pressure is starting to get maybe to some of these players. So simple free throws, guys that are good free throw shooters like Kolek, Cat, just missing shots at the free throw line too. No, tonight wasn't as bad as the last game, but the last game was terrible, man. We missed 10 free throws in Dallas, right? Another thing that concerned me tonight, guys, is I pull up the stats, right? As you see, the wire to wire, man, the lead tracker, it was absolutely crazy, right, tonight. But as I pull up the shot chart, right, the Knicks on the left, the Orlando Magic on the right, right. Look at the restricted area for the Orlando Magic, man. It was crazy. Layup line after layup. Franz Wagner, putbacks abound, right? I think we got dominated in the paint. As the New York Knicks were hitting a lot of mid-range shots, forced to take some more tough looks. Mike Brown's not going to be happy with the paint sprays tonight. But yeah, look at the restricted area, guys, man. You're not going to win nothing with the amount of buckets, the amount of blue in the paint. J-Dub says Yabusele trash, right? and needs to stop getting playing time. Yeah, I think he needs to have a seat. He had a couple of decent games. I think it was plus 15 team high last game, but he's just not given us enough on the other side, or both sides right now. And yeah, he might be trade bait. His salary is very, very friendly. Well, if he plays like this, maybe not. But heading into the season, man, there'd have been a lot of teams interested in a guy like Yabu. So let's see, man. I do think Leon Rose was always going to make a move. He does make a move in season. Right now, I'm trying to look at internal solutions. Right, you got a guy like Trey Jemison tonight playing in Westchester. They're actually playing right now as we speak. Dink Pate, Kevin McCullough, Trey Jemison. I saw some nice highlights that I'm going to bring up. Those guys getting some reps with Westchester. But, yeah, a guy like Diawara, he has to keep playing. Do you play some more minutes with Dardier? You might have to look at that. We need some size. Landry Shamet's going to be out now. So that's probably the biggest takeaway from tonight's ball game, fam, is the Landry Shamet injury. And Landry's been one of our most consistent players the last couple of games. So, he's going to be sorely missed. His two-way play, and someone else is going to have to step up. New York City Grey says this team is no championship contender. Even if they get out of the East, the West will sweep. Changes are needed. We evaluate what we see right now. And like I say, I feel like there's another gear or two that the Knicks can get to. They're just simply not playing at a playoff intensity, whether that's, playing down to the competition, whether that's they're just not locked in yet, or a chemistry issue, or a personnel issue. I do think there's improvement that the Knicks can make. Are they going to get there, though? Are they going to be a championship contender this season, right? I think the hopes are fading, right? I'm still not ruling it out, but I do think, some changes need to be made. Tweak some personnel. As AP says, CT, when does Leon Rose's clock start? For me, personally, I think after this season, where this season is obviously, a championship or bust kind of season, right? But next summer, I say that because, I do think Giannis is going to change teams. I don't know if he's going to come to the New York Knicks. Obviously, that's the hope. If the Knicks are unsuccessful this season in winning that championship and breaking that drought, fam, yeah, that's why I say I think after this season, and he probably has one more summer to pull off, a major move. We'll see. Don't forget they haven't committed to Mitchell Robinson yet. So that's a big storyline to follow all season right now. How many minutes did Mitch play tonight? Not scapegoating Mitch in any way. The whole team played poor defensively, but Mitch only played 16 minutes. So what's the reason for that? Right? Are we carrying him right now from a load management perspective? Right? One of our best defensive players. Right? Can you win a championship playing him 16 minutes? Or are we just saving him for the playoffs? Right? If that's the plan, I get it. But, you got to build chemistry. Mitch playing 16 minutes a night. Cat more minutes, 37 tonight. And then you've got Yabusele, who's a turnstile. Right? I do think there's room for Huck or Trey to get in the mix. Gray says, what's going on with the Knicks on the road? Makes me wonder what the record would have been if we'd played half of games on the road. Look, we're at the 15 game point, and it's fair to make, strong evaluations. I do think the 15-20 game is kind of that point. But yeah, it's still, we're not at the quarter-way point in the season. And so I do think time is ticking. The Knicks definitely need to switch on and turn it up. Right now looks like they're just coasting right now. From some players, the effort is there, but defensively, they're just not on the same page. They need to lock the heck in ASAP. you know, uh, and it's all good. I do think we're going to continue to beat up on bad teams, fam. We do have the Brooklyn Nets next up. We've got the Hornets. We'll see where that plays out, but we're going to look at the standings right now because it's a new dawn, it's a new day. The Pistons are legit. I do think the Raptors look like they're getting healthy. Brandon Ingram was a big pickup. I do think they're a pretender right now, but right now they are what their record says. I think they're in second or third. We are still ahead of the Magic, I think, but we're seeing it, up against certain matchups, we can struggle. And we do have to learn to play with this level of physicality too. We can't just keep using the referees as an excuse. We know they're bad. We know the referees is terrible. But what's going to change, right? Is it our attitude and our play, or are we just going to continue to let the refs change these games? We got to fight through it. Certainly, playing more athletic guys that can move their feet is better. Less Yabu, probably even less Cat. Let's keep it a B. Cat didn't have it going offensively until late, and then he's hurting you defensively too. Rebounding wise, Brunson had it going, so Brunson was the standout player, I think, from an offensive standpoint. But even he got into his head a little bit with that Jalen Suggs matchup. Jalen Suggs does like to talk a lot of smack, and we'll really see where the Orlando Magic, stack up, because they can talk a game, but it is early in the season. We've seen the Magic fall away for the last 3 seasons. So, how do y'all feel about the Magic first and foremost? Do you think this is a good measuring test, a barometer, or do you think it's more that the New York Knicks were just lacking? I'm still not fully sold on the Magic. There just seems to be periods where you can slow them down. Desmond Bane was a hell of a pickup, and I do think that's probably the move that's pushed them closer to getting a top 4 spot. But right now, they are kind of a 500 team still. They've had the best of us right now in the 2 matchups, but I don't think the Orlando Magic are the real deal just yet. They've got ways to go. The East is hella wide open, man. But we need to take our chances in this one, right? So you see all the plus minus, man. Bridges was +1. Bridges was one of the more consistent Knicks tonight. Shot 60% from downtown. 7 of 11 as well. 1 block, 2 steals, 18 points. I thought Bridges and Brunson were by far the best 2 players on the Knicks in the first half. Hart hit some buckets too. 5 of 9, but -19. Brunson was -13. JC -11, and Cat -14. Right, with guys playing major minutes, you ain't gonna win a ball game with guys, struggling that bad on the defensive side. Right. So it's a landslide in the poll right now. How you feeling after tonight? Defense not good enough to win at 87%. 10% say the refs changed the game. 3% say we're just missing OG and Deuce. Right. And look, as I'll say it again. OG got paid $42 million. A lot of people say he got overpaid, but it just goes to show how important OG Anunoby is to this team, right? We know he's kind of overpaid from an offensive standpoint because he's not that much of a dynamic offensive player. But what he means for this team defensively, man, he's our best defender, right? And I got all the love in the world for Mitch, but you got to factor in a lot of things with Mitch's durability, playing 16 minutes a game. OG Anunoby is our best defensive player from a game-to-game perspective. But I do like the fact that they've obviously got to, give him that enough time to heal. The hamstring, we don't want that popping back up. Hamstrings are tricky. Slow Runner says, Diawara and Dardier should be in the G League getting minutes. Bring in Garrison Matthews. We missed the boat on that, fam. Garrison Matthews is now with the Indiana Pacers. He got picked up. AP, Deuce McBride had an illness, so not related to the personal reasons earlier, but the illness with Deuce McBride. So there is a lot of that going around. So I do think Deuce will be back though sooner rather than later. And look, we will bounce back. We do have the Brooklyn Nets up next, the Charlotte Hornets, and then Milwaukee and the Raptors are going to be a good test, right? So let's pull up the action from today, right? We'll take a look at that. I do think that the New York Knicks will, they will be around the. I don't see us finishing in a, lower than a top 4 spot, right? I know it's early. I just don't see us finishing, any lower than a top 4 spot. Let us know how you guys feel. As we see the Bucks and the Pistons, right? That's going to be a good game to close out the day. The Pistons, I do think they're obviously got to face some stronger tests, but the Bulls are a 500 team. The Hawks just seem to can't get a run going. The Magic probably are going to, start to climb up, right? So there's not too many games earlier from today. So let's pull up the standings and refresh, right? And we'll see if the New York Knicks drop further down. No, we are in 5th, right? At 9-6, right? So we are tied with the Philly 76ers, still ahead of the Magic, right? Despite the Magic having the season series, the Knicks are still ahead of the Magic, ahead of the Hawks, ahead of the Bulls and the Bucks, right? So that just tells you how bad the East is right now. Still within striking range of the Cavaliers, so close, and the Raptors, obviously, we will face in the coming weeks, right? The Pistons we won't face until, later in the new year. We'll see if they win today, but the Heat have the edge over the Knicks as well. But yeah, I do think the Knicks will still finish in the top 4 spot, but we really need to be finishing in that 2nd spot, I think, to avoid the number 1 seed. I'm not a fan of the Anthony Davis movement. The guy can't stay on the floor, man. It's too much of a risk for us right now. When you've got OG Anunoby, you've got Mitch, you've got some durability issues right now with Deuce. It's interesting. But yeah, look, the Deuce McBride thing, whatever he's got right now, it seems to be a short-term thing. Deuce was out with the family, issue, personal reasons earlier due to the passing of his grandmother. So we do give Deuce, obviously the personal space for that one. But today was the illness. But yeah, for the most part, Deuce is fairly durable. I'm not too concerned about Deuce right now, but Deuce McBride is so important to this ball club, and those are the facts. You take 3 really good rotation pieces off any team, and they are going to struggle. Simply put. But the thing is, it's always been next man up. We've dealt with the setbacks. Before we've dealt with some challenges when Tibbs was coach last season. Now, it's a real test for Mike Brown, to fight through it. Don't forget, we dealt with OG Anunoby out for a month last season. We dealt with the captain out for a month. Unfortunately, the injury concerns seem to be a lot more disruptive this early in the season. The Landry Shamet one is just a tough blow right now, but that is going to open the door for a trade, possibly a buyout signing, and a young Nick just having to take a step up. But I do think there's another gear we can get to. Hopefully, a few more gears with just guys locking in. Right now they just don't look fully locked in. But Mike Brown, I do think, has to tweak some of the lineups and the rotations, because I think some of y'all still continue to ask, what is the Knicks' identity? Do we have an identity? Well, as far as I could lean on, is our identity was on offensive-minded, team that's going to play fast and try to outscore you. And right now, it's good enough to beat, inferior opponents, but it ain't good enough to beat good opponents, because you need stops. You need to be able to stop the other team from scoring if you're playing a good team. Now, you can blow out bad teams because they just simply can't put the ball in the basket. But when you are playing teams that can put the ball in the basket, you need stops. So as we move over to the coaches talk right now. I think this is the first real hurdle and bump in the road for Mike Brown. I'm going to say it. The first part of this season where I think there's real adversity facing this ball club with OG out, the Shamit blow. Yeah, Brunson just got back, thank God. But I do think Mike Brown has seriously got to make some changes, some tweaks. You see some rawness from Diawara. It's all good to say play Diawara more, but is that the solution to all of our problems? No, it's not. Benching Yabusele is a part of the solution, in my opinion. You've definitely got to look at maybe Dardier. He's the more seasoned of the younger guys. Now Kolek stepped up today, so I expect Kolek to start to see more time now. You know. Now, yeah, practice. There's only so much you can iron out in practice. I do think our defensive issues, guys, it stems from personnel. And obviously we love Cat when he gets going offensively, and he can score with the best of them. But one, he doesn't get a good whistle, and he does force the action a lot. And this really is on Mike Brown to figure out the best and worst of Karl Anthony Towns, and just try to balance it out. With defensive lineups, with him and the captain. Him and the captain playing heavy minutes, man, they better be clicking. Like Buzzer Beater says, pick and roll, ball movement, speed. We can get away with it against some bad teams, but you do get punished against some teams that can get stops plus, score on you on the other end. As we see some craftiness from JB, I want to see a lot more rigid play calling and sets from Mike Brown. There is still a lot of freestyling. Now, reading the game and understanding where the game is going is still, I think, lacking with this team and the focus, right? I used the example earlier. Jalen Suggs picked up his third foul in the first possession of the third quarter, right? There's no reason he should still be on the floor for most of the game. Get him in foul trouble. Take that matchup and take him to the rack. With how aggressive he is defensively, he should have got the fourth and fifth foul, earlier in this game. And the Knicks just didn't recognize that or didn't focus enough. You know what I mean? Glenn Jones, salute, man. Says it's early, very early, but Shaman is out. Mitch day to day. Cat plays like a 12-year-old girl. Everyone was just giving us the East, and it don't look so easy now, does it? Yeah, I never expected us to look like the finished article, early in the season, right? That's why I'm not panicking just yet. But there's definitely things I want to see us correct in the next 10 games, fam. And the tests are going to keep coming. As I pull up some highlights from Kevin McCullough, Trey Jemison, and Dink Pate, right? Kevin McCullough playing a gritty game in Westchester right now. Gets the offensive rebound and the nice little putback. Likes the contact. I'm a fan of Kevin McCullough, but we'll see what happens as the season progresses, man. I'm not suggesting he's the solution, but you got to look at some adjustments. I do like his grittiness. I do like Dink Pate as well, who's getting some reps into the G. Yeah, with Glenn's comment, fam, I do think that the season is still too early to determine the East. The Raptors could easily slide back down. The Cavs could get going. The Pistons could regress. I do think that the Magic and the Heat could start to make a run. So let's wait for the quarter waypoint, right? What are we at? 15 games now. Once we get to the 2025, right? And we're getting close to the quarter waypoint, but we're still 3 games above 500, and we are dealing with injuries. So you can't make some sweeping conclusions just yet until we get OG back. Could we have won this ball game with OG and Deuce? Absolutely. And so you do obviously got to take the results with a grain of salt right now because of the guys that we're missing. Now, how we deal without Landry Shamet is going to be, a great unknown, man. I got no idea who's really going to step up because Landry was excellent, especially in this last 5 game stretch, offensively, defensively as well, with his ability to actually handle the rock. Don't forget, that's another ball handler that the Knicks have lost. Like Shamet's been bringing the rock up the court a lot to take the load off some of these other guys, and that's another ball handler now out of action for potentially the whole season. So as of right now, less Yabusele. I'm going with more Kolek. Either Diawara and Dardier have to play, and obviously you get Deuce back in the next one. Hart and obviously Clarkson will continue their minutes and start, and continue playing their heavy bench role. But with Shamet out, he started tonight. So maybe you insert Josh Hart into the starting lineup. Maybe you go a guy like a Diawara. And I do think Huck Porty probably needs to take Yabu's minutes right now. Gray says personnel is an issue, but it is for the coach to find a system to hide his weaknesses. And great comment, 100% agree. That's why I do feel like for the first time this season, Mike Brown is really hitting the first reality check, gut check, bump in the road, whatever you want to call it, fork in the road. This is it for Mike Brown right now. And it could be worse. Again, we're not even below 500, but this is the point where questions are seriously needing to be asked, because we're not going to beat good teams defensively, the way we are struggling. Now, I would love transparency on the Mitchell Robinson thing. Just tell us, because just tell us you're managing his load until the playoffs. This whole 16 minutes, 17 minutes is a joke, right? He's either fully healthy and one of our best defenders and you play him big minutes, or not. Or you just tell us you're worried about, managing his minutes, right now. Yeah. Banchero was, part of the Magic struggles for the last few seasons. So you get Desmond Bane and you get quicker, you get athletic, and you get more shooting with their pace and space. But look, today was a 50-50 kind of game. And so am I really worried about the Magic when push comes to shove? Slightly, but not to the point where I think we can't beat them. Yes, they're 2-0 against us so far. They deserve those 2 wins. They're a gritty team, but they're still young and they've still got a lot of follies in them. Look at Anthony Black and Jalen Suggs, right? They'll foul out in a playoff game. The way they they get a little bit careless, reckless, guarding the rock. And look, this game was what the Knicks had the lead. I think the end of the second quarter was where we really let our guard down. The New York Knicks had momentum. They had a good position in this ball game. They just did not capitalize as they continue to, to give up lapses throughout the game. So, how are y'all feeling right now against the East, right? Let us know the teams that you're worried about. Or is it too early to tell? Look, I'm not worried about the Heat. The Heat have beaten the Knicks twice. The Magic have beaten the Knicks twice. I'm not overly worried about them. It's it's some of the other teams as well. The Pistons, the Bucks, the Cavs as well. But I do think, my biggest concern is the depth, right? Who are we going to call upon with Shamet out now and guys inexperienced, right? We were already kind of shorthanded with some veterans, with Brogdon, I think, retiring. And if you seriously want to call the New York Knicks a championship contender, I don't think you can really look at our kind of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th guys and say, yeah, that's a championship level depth. As I pull up the roster, if Clarkson, if Kolek's in your rotation, is that a championship level depth, right? Maybe 1 to 7, we're extremely strong, but what's going to happen with the 8th, the 9th, the 10th, the 11th kind of personnel? You look at OKC, they can go 14 deep. Um, I do think that the Denver Nuggets are incredibly deep as well. Gray says, "Yeah, I won't lie. I'm worried about Detroit. They deserve a lot of credit. We got to see them against us. Jalen Duren's looking great. I do think they've got Beef Stew back fully healthy as well. They've got Jaden Ivey too. Um, yeah, I agree. I do think they're probably one of the biggest challenges for the East. Cleveland, they're hard to read because you know they can look like a world beater 1 minute, or they could finish close to undefeated, in the top seed and still choke in the playoffs, right? With Detroit, it comes down to the Orlando thing for me, fam, inexperience too. Don't forget, the Knicks did their best to let Detroit hang around in that last playoff series. I do think we kind of played down to that style and that level of play, getting in our heads with the physicality and all of that. So hopefully we can use this regular season to really figure it all out and learn. And if there's a silver lining, guys, it's like I said, look at Cleveland. They basically looked like they were unstoppable last season, and then they got to the playoffs and they turned into a pumpkin. Uh, and then you look at the opposite. You had the Indiana Pacers struggling throughout the season. When they got to the playoffs, they really gelled and they clicked and they bonded and they just flipped the switch. So if anything's taught me that teams can flip that switch, but you have to have that personnel and you have to have that, the flashes that it's possible. Right now, we're not seeing it. You know, right now we struggle to string together 3 stops in a row. I won't lie. And most of the time, if we get a stop, it's just because the team just missed a basic open look. Um, as I pull up these stats again, I just don't think it's sustainable when you're giving up this level of these level of looks at the basket. Right. Let's pull up this shot chart once again. Everyone joining us, appreciate you rocking out with us. Saturday night Knicks, 9-6 on the season. It's been a bumpy ride so far, with some of the injuries now starting to really hamper the team. I won't be surprised if Brunson is the guy that just really carries us through this, locks in, and just keeps us afloat. But we're not at our best without Deuce, OG, and we need someone to replace Shamit, right? But we sure as heck can't win a championship playing this level defense, right? It just ain't sustainable. Look at our paint looks compared to theirs, man. It's one-way traffic. One-way traffic in the paint, right? And they've always given us some issues with size. They've got Wendell Carter, Bataze. They've got Isaac. Even Tristan Da Silva's long. Franz Wagner looks like he's 6'10", man. When I see Franz Wagner next to Karl Anthony Towns, I'm like, that guy's a wing that's nearly the size of a center. So they've got some great talent, do the magic. I do think they're a few years away from really, or a couple of moves away from really hitting that championship level. But there's some moves that are out there, fam. I'm starting to hear that the Detroit Pistons might get aggressive for a guy like a Lauri Markkanen. And I do think there will be a lot of players available because of the tank game. Guys, this year is a generational draft. And once we hit All-Star break, teams that realize there's only one way to go, they're going to start to shed some pieces and try to get some assets and start to lose. So I do think when we're looking around the league, as I pull up the standings once again, I do think that there will be a lot of names available, and some depth pieces being on the move, right? What if the Pistons were able to get a Lauri Markkanen? They're right there. They're absolutely right there in terms of a championship contender. I think if they can get a major piece like that with all of their depth, the Raptors I think they're more fool's gold right now. But the Heat, Pat Riley's always going to be sniffing around trying to make a move. Right now, I do think the Knicks need one more ball handler and a wing, another wing that can cover up OG or Macau and guard. Maybe Diawara or Dardier comes along, and we'll see. Yeah, I don't think the roster's going to be what it is right now when the season finishes. Chris Gotti says, damn, Shamet was playing good too. It's just ironic, but also devastating the way the injury happened, because it just it summarizes Landry Shamet's fight and grit and focus, man, that he gets hurt fighting over a pick, and I did see a replay. It looks like Wendell Carter did, lower the shoulder and really, lower the shoulder into Shamet, and caused part of the reason for him to get hurt. But that's just the nature of the game, fam. It could be football, basketball, baseball, anything. Injuries happen, and I do think it's over to Leon Rose now, fam. We definitely got to look at things coming up in December and who's stepping up. Now's the time for Mike Brown to really try some of the depth, right? Can Kolek take this spot and run with it? This is his Knicks career on the line. He's going to get no better chance, fam. Is a TKO to try to cement a regular spot in the rotation. Yabul Sele, his Knick career could be a quick cup of coffee if he doesn't get it together. And yeah, we'll continue to monitor the situation, right? Joey from the Bronx, appreciate with the super chat, chiming in, says, CT, who got the soft hat and Uggs tonight, CT, no D. I do think Macau probably was our best defensive player, fam. He was actually in the +1. But Mitch was poor defensively too, still limited in somewhat. Cat, poor. Brunson, Hart, everyone in the minus except Macau too. But I think, look, let's be honest, we got away with one in Dallas too. So we're 1-5 on the road. And like Joey says, we need more guys to wear that hard hat and step up. Look, the Brogdon thing was a blow at the time, but no one was really going to know how much we were going to rely on a Malcolm Brogdon, right? I say that to say this, because when Yabu's not stepping up, you look at our off season, suddenly it don't look so great, does it, fam? Right? And yeah, people were happy to gloss over the Brogdon thing because, all right, we're excited, the season's starting, someone will step up. All right, you lose Shamet now. Garrison Matthews, you didn't keep him. He went over to Indiana now. Campaign's gone. So it's Kolek's time to step up. But Shamet, let's say, worst case scenario, he's out. Deuce becomes even more important. He can't miss games. We need a guy like a McCullough maybe. Brogdon, retires, and then Yabul Sele. Yabul Sele is as good as a turnstile right now, right? You could even say defensively, especially, Precious Achua. Precious Achua was a better piece for the Knicks based on what we've seen so far, especially on the defensive side. Because is Yabul Sele hitting threes? No, he's not. Is he guarding anybody? No, he's not. Is he making plays? Not really. I mean, he sets good picks. That's about it. So what does that say about our off-season, really? I mean, I was buzzing over the Clarkson move. Thankfully, we signed Clarkson. But if Yabul Sele is 0, Shamet's basically 0 because he's out now. Our off-season was nothing. And so Leon Rose got to get busy. Leon Rose got to get ultra busy. There was a lot of veteran minimum guys out there that could have been selected. Are they going to regret not trading the Diawara or Kolek and trying to make way for another veteran? Look, there's still time. There's definitely still time, and I think they probably will. Right? Leon Rose has made a trade in season every year. Fournier, Derek Rose, Josh Hart, the Quentin Grimes Bogdanovich trade, last season's trade with 2 seasons for OG Anunoby, last season's trade as well. So yeah, I do think things are going to get real busy with this one. J Dub says Dink Pate trade Jemison as well. Bryson Warren playing better than some of these kids in Kolek and Dardier. Shez V says send Dardier to the G to get a lot of playing time. AP says if the Pistons win the chip before us, Leon Rose needs to be gone. I don't think the Pistons can, but we'll see what plays out, right? We've got some trolls in the building coming through. The first thing they think of when they beat the Knicks, instead of enjoying the win, is to troll. AP with a super chat again. My guy, AP, appreciate you. Buzzing tonight. Passionate and fired up. AP says CT, if the Pistons win before the Knicks, Leon Rose has to be fired. Right. He got a gutted out entire team and assets for Towns, Mikal Bridges, and the Pistons probably got half the payroll. So appreciate it once again, man, for the contributions. And where I'm going to go with this one is, I think where the Knicks have kind of are missing and lacking a little bit that the Pistons have is the homegrown aspect. I'm a big fan of having some homegrown talent. And you look at the Knicks, we are very top heavy, but we traded for all of the guys. Brunson, we traded for, or signed as a free agent. Cat, we traded for. Hart, we traded for. Mikal Bridges, we traded for. OG Anunoby, we traded for. Right, we've got a couple of homegrown guys in Mitchell Robinson and Deuce, but not enough. And that is ultimately could be the pitfall in trying to get a defensive championship team. Sorry. Right. Look at Jamal Murray, Joker, some homegrown championship team. Look when the Milwaukee Bucks won the chip, they had the homegrown stud. You could go down the list of all the last champions. Oklahoma City Thunder, they had homegrown studs. So Leon Rose, he's chosen the blockbuster trades and free agency route. Yeah, it's got us to a great position, but this could be the roadblock. We whiffed on the Jalen Duren front. We traded down so many drafts and wasted a couple of picks. We moved off of Quentin Grimes for the Bogdanovich situation. You see AJ Mitchell, Terrence Shannon Jr., a lot of guys that the Knicks could have selected ahead of Dardier or Kolek. And it does look like it's really hurting us right now. What's his name? Ryan Dunn, the defensive wing out of Phoenix. He was a homegrown New York product. But look, I know they looked at probably OG. They look at Bridges and think, okay, we're paying so much in these wings. We're good with wings. But in truth, when OG gets hurt, we're not. We're not right now. And it is a sad state when you got to rely on vet minimum guys like Shamet and Clarkson to prop you up rather than develop someone else. Look at Josh Minot, a guy who could have been had as a free agent, a young player that we could have built up. Washington got so many of those picks and nice young players on the come up too, fam. So, look, it's looking like an Achilles heel for us right now. And if we are going to sort of excel, get to where we need to be, it's got to be someone, either a pickup or a Kolek, Dardier, Diawara, Huck. Some of these guys are going to really have to take their chance and really step up. Now, I was a fan of some of our two-way signings, right? Did one of them take their chance? Tosan, OG's out. So why isn't Tosan on the bench getting some opportunities? We'll see what happens with McCullough and Trey Gem. Johnny Chiba says to AP, Cade is the key. Yeah. And look, on AP's super chat as well, I do think it's great front office work that the Detroit Pistons and Orlando Magic have done. They've been patient. Uh, yes, it's been a slow build, man. It's if you're a fan of their franchises, man, it's been a slow grind, right, just to get to this point. So I'm not going to sit here and say that just clicked their fingers and they turned it on overnight. No, Orlando's an embarrassment for years. They've been tanking and trying to build and build and build until they finally get it right. So I ain't saying it's easy. The Detroit Pistons, the same thing, man. What was it, 25 years since they won a playoff series last season, or a playoff game at home? So it's been a grind for them as well. But look, I do think the reason with the Leon Rose thing, I do think it'll hit a fork in the road in the summer. What are you going to do with Cat's extension, Mitch's extension? Also, what's going to happen with Giannis? Everything I've read and heard is that Giannis is intrigued by the Knicks. I know he's going to deny it at the podium, but I do think that's going to be a real thing in the summer. I do think if the Bucks can't win, both teams are going to be at a crossroads, and I do think that the Bucks are just going to have to trade Giannis and get as much as they possibly can. Are we going to have enough to pull off that kind of move? Let's see. We might be in asset collection mode when it comes to to the summer. But look, I'm not at that point yet because this season's still young and there's still a lot of road ahead, a lot of runway, right? So let's take a look at the next stretch. We've got Brooklyn. That has to be a win, right? That's at the Barclays. And then you've got the Hornets, which, look, that's not going to be no pushover. I don't expect us to win, but I don't expect that game to be easy. So let's see. They got Concanepple, looks like he's up and coming. Brandon Miller always gets hot. Bridges will get hot. The other Bridges, and we'll see what happens with LaMelo. I'm not sure if he's healthy, but the Bucks will be a good test. The Raptors, and then you got the Celtics on the road. They'll be looking for some revenge. You got Charlotte, Utah, and Orlando again, heading into the NBA Cup. Right, so it's kind of good we get another bite at Orlando at home on Sunday, December 7. So let's see how we respond, man. Could OG be back by then? I think we'll know he'll be reevaluated by then. Obviously the grade of the hamstring is the most, important aspect of that injury, right? If it's if it's extra serious, he needs that NBA Cup break. Because if you look at that break from December 8 all the way to 17, right, it could be a very few amount of games played, especially if we don't advance with that. Juan V says, something is missing with the team, lack of athleticism and ball handling. Definitely, you hit the nail. I think a little bit of focus too, toughness, and a high IQ. Understanding the games and the situations, because we're in these ball games and we're getting momentum. There's a lot of swing plays. Like we're getting to the point where we're up 3, and the next possession becomes critical, and then we just give up a 3 or we lose focus. But continually, our defensive rotations are poor. We overhelp. We let blow-bys. We'll play a nice possession, but then give up the offensive rebound and opens up a 3. We're bad in transition. If we score a basket, the other team can push the break and get a basket as well. A lot of the concerns I had at the start of the season, guys, about playing faster. Everyone kept saying, we are going to play fast. We're going to push the break. Okay, our offense has stepped up. We're scoring easier. But what happens on the other end? We score quickly. The other team's just going to push it because Cat's fallen out of bounds or he's on the floor. Hart's on the floor or, Brunson's slow in transition. So I don't think that this fast-paced thing is sustainable to a way where, we're going to play ultra fast. Now, we needed quick ball movement, snappy decisions and not as much isolation, but I don't think we're a team that's going to be like Indiana, and sustain this kind of fast-paced offense, right? Because it is hurting our defense right now, man. Um, Gray says, we only hope Giannis continues to be intrigued by the Knicks. Yeah. As far as I know, that's not going to change. I think, you heard from the man Shams, he's intrigued by the situation. Winning in New York, I think, would be the only thing that would usurp winning the championship in Milwaukee. Let's keep it a buck. Giannis is smart. He knows his, time with Milwaukee and winning a championship is probably at an end. But he also knows, okay, what's the next play for his legacy, right? For legacy situation, the Knicks are the biggest, shiny toy and jewel in the market right now. Now, there could be other factors. He could be intrigued by Orlando. He could be intrigued by the Houston Rockets. It could come down to he has a couple of teams, and the Bucks are free to get the best possible package. But the issue that those teams might face is leverage, fam. The leverage play. Giannis will become a free agent in 1 year after the summer. So, how much a team's going to be willing to go all in, and how brave is Leon Rose going to have to be to get that deal? We are going to have to pay through our teeth or through the nose, basically, if we're going to get it done. And how much is that going to gut, more of the depth? That's just going to be interesting, But no doubt I'm watching closely because, it's a game changer. Anytime you can get an MVP level talent. Also, as all of us know, the East is ticking. Like, it ain't going to be this week for that long, right? Orlando's coming. The Raptors might improve. You've got Heat. You've got Pistons. And then you've obviously got Boston that's going to get better next season with Tatum coming back and Halliburton coming back, right? So it's now or never, really, unless we make that move for the superstar to come in. Right now, has Cat lived up to the billing? Cat is kind of being who Cat is, but is it a game changer in terms of what we had with Randall and Dante DiVincenzo? I would still do the trade today because I do think that Cat on his day is better than Julius Randle from an offensive standpoint, and defensively it's basically the same. But obviously we do miss Dante DiVincenzo. But I'd still do that trade. But with Cat, is he a needle mover in terms of like as the second best player next to Brunson to help us win that chip in the East? Well, right now it's looking unlikely. It's looking unlikely from my opinion, right? He's just not good enough offensively for us to, to pave over the cracks of the other guys defensively, especially with the size. And so, yeah, what's Leon and Brock Aller got up their sleeve from a financial standpoint, right? I certainly wouldn't want to extend Cat with whatever salary that comes with. Mitch, I can understand the route they're taking, to keep him healthy for the playoffs. But he's definitely going to have to play more than 16 minutes. Right? That's a joke. Yep, City 89 says Milwaukee's just spinning the wheels right now. Yep, they're going to get eliminated first round like they always do. I do think they've got a little bit more promise this season, but I do think the road ends in the second round for the Bucks. They got Ryan Rollins, they got Miles Turner, they got Cole Anthony, they got a few more depth pieces. They got rid of Chris Middleton. Yeah, look out for the buyout market, guys. We might not need to make a massive trade. If a guy like a Chris Middleton gets bought out or a Colin Sexton gets bought out, I do think there's going to be some pretty big names from a role player standpoint get a buyout because we look at the standings again, right? As I say, there's going to be that fork in the road when you hit that trade deadline. Teams are going to have to decide, like, okay, we're not going to win the chip. This is a generational draft where top 5, top 6 potential pieces in this upcoming draft could be franchise changing. And so teams aren't going to want these, streaky players that can get hot and win them some games. So it could be names like Middleton, Sexton, some of these veterans that teams just don't want no more, and they just want to get rid of them. Yeah, I'll buy out the salary. We're not winning nothing. To hell with these guys. And I do think there's going to be a lot of teams try to tank, after the All-Star break, right? Which is smart. They should be, because again, you could get in that top 5, top 6 draft. You could get a changing talent, right? You don't want some of these dudes, stacking up some wins. So whatever veteran that the Brooklyn Nets have, whatever veteran that's on Indiana. Look, Indiana's at 2-14. They should be thinking about tanking already. The Wizards have got a couple of veterans too. CJ McCollum. The Hornets have got Sexton. He's a prime buyout guy. The Celtics are 8-8. They might want to get rid of somebody. Yeah. And if all these dudes get bought out, they are going to look at teams that are going to contend. It's like, yeah, man, I'll go to the Knicks, try to get a major rotation role, and I'll try to help them win that chip. So I think that could be our best chance, fam. Buzzer Beater says CT is Catworthy's contract. I think it's the going rate. Like, as in, this might sound like, yeah, I think the going rate for what Cat's talent is fair. But is his production and consistency living up to that? I would say no. Right, but it's also on the coach to figure things out. AP says, okay, CT, let's say Greek wants out. Why would he want to come to the Knicks when we're just as bad as they are? Well, I think you would see, the talent of Brunson, fam. You would see the talent of like a Mikal Bridges as the third option, and you kind of see that nucleus as being, and the challenge. Giannis still loves a challenge, He knows it's not going to be easy, but I'll give you this. He hates Indiana. He can't stand Tyrese Halliburton and his pops. Don't forget they had that altercation as well. So he can't wait to send Indiana packing. Also, I can't see Giannis going to the Boston Celtics, right? Unless they can really put together a great package. You got Tatum recovering from the Achilles. I don't know if they're going to have enough. So what else is it going to be? Is it going to be the Rockets? I do think the Knicks as a city, as a whole, as a legacy point, still in play. Now, I'm not saying we're the only one, but I don't think whatever's happened in the summer to next summer is going to change too much. I do think Giannis remains intrigued by the Knicks situation. We just have to take care of our business, finish in the top 3, top 2, make a good playoff run. And assuming that happens, I don't see why he would sour on the Knicks situation. It's just all going to come down to, the pieces. It's probably going to be a massive 4-team, 3-team kind of trade, because I don't think the Bucks are going to want a Cat. They might take OG, or they might take a McCall and Josh Hart. David says, I'm not trying to panic, CT, but I'm really concerned about this team. Let us know what concern level you have. I'm concerned to a point where it's 6.5. I do think we're hitting a real funky patch, but I'm not hitting the panic button yet. The Shamet injury blow, I think we'll find out tomorrow. But obviously, that's something that we're really going to have to navigate. Look, OG's not going to be out for too long. He'll be back in the new year at least, at the latest. So Deuce McBride will return, and we're a good team. We have great talent, top 7, top 8, top 7, but we need everybody healthy, and we also need to capitalize on softer schedule. Fam, I do think that the East is kind of the NBA is unforgiving right now. You can't have these lapses. Like let's say we had lost to the Dallas game the other night, and then we had lost this game tonight. That would have pushed us like we would have been down to 10th or something as well. Uh, Michael says going to have to not panic. Watch the Lakers end up with Giannis. Yeah, it's going to be a legacy kind of situation, I think, or leverage, sorry, situation, because Giannis is a free agent in 1 year, basically 18 months from now. But it's obviously, we all have a part to play because the city's buzzing, the fans buzz when the team is good. There's that championship drought. Like I said, there's only one thing that Giannis understands would usurp his legacy with the Bucks championship, and that's a championship with the New York Knicks. He's already got paid. He's got all the money in the world right now. It's about legacy. It's about winning, kind of thing. So it's definitely going to be a big wait and see. They're obviously going to consult Brunson too, because I think he's going to have a big say in terms of what pieces get moved out. If that happens, the future of Cat is definitely undecided right now. And look, yeah, I've spoken my piece about the Cat trade. It's not like a resounding win, but I would still do the trade today if we had to, because obviously the Julius Randle thing, for many reasons, that played out. That doesn't mean Cat's ticking all the boxes. Man, Cat's so polarizing right now. He's definitely not the second option that I envision, the way he's playing. But considering the Dante and obviously Randall contract situation, I think we made the best of a bad situation. And on his day, Cat can win you playoff series. He can win you playoff games. So we just got to wait and see. But from a defensive standpoint, that's definitely our biggest issue right now, and his inconsistency. With the Lakers thing, we'll see, man. I don't know what kind of moves they could make, but LeBron retiring is definitely going to free up plenty of cash when it comes to that. So, yeah, I'm predicting the Brooklyn win. I'm predicting Charlotte win. Milwaukee one will be cool. That would get us 3 in a row and get us back to 12-6, which would be a great situation to be in heading into the home game against the Raptors on the 30th. Right? That's going to be a big game on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. tip against the Raptors. But I'm looking at the next 3-game stretch, and you definitely got to go 2-1. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, 3-0, and we get some get back against the Bucks, right? But the silver lining against Brooklyn and Charlotte is some of our young guys should get more of a chance. Brooklyn aren't interested in winning no ball games. The Charlotte Hornets are young, but also that's in Charlotte. So Knicks fans, that building's going to be filled with the Knicks fans as well, right? So we hopefully get the next 2, and we can just start to build, some more chemistry and cohesion, fam. As the winner in tonight's poll is the defense was just not good enough to win. 12% say the refs changed the game. 6% say we miss OG and Deuce. 6% say Shamet's hurt. Trades are coming right now. So yeah, you guys are on point. I got to agree, fam. Defense is our biggest issue. Scoring the rocks not going to be an issue, I think, long term, because we do have enough guys that could get shots. I do think Clarkson with Deuce McBride, the bench scoring has definitely, improved over last season. As I just pull up our bench scoring tonight, and then we'll wrap up. Bench scoring tonight, so we got 12 points from Hart, 15 points from Clarkson, 4 points from Yabu, 8 points from Kolek, right? So bench scoring's definitely improved over last season, mainly due to the Clarkson pickup. But unfortunately, on the defensive side, Yabusele is worse than Precious. And then Kolek's not a great defensive player either. So you definitely need a Diawara or a Dardier coming in for Shamit, in my opinion. If Deuce is ready to go in the next one, he'll start, I think, in that Shamit spot. I do think Deuce gets the start in the next one, assuming he's feeling better. And then the bench probably just remains as is with Clarkson, Hart, Diawara, Kolek, and Yabu. So you could still put together that 10-man rotation, 9-10 man, with Deuce returning. And then if OG returns soon, then Yabu probably comes out. But I would look at limiting Yabu's minutes ASAP. Not hitting those threes, and tough to watch on the defensive side. So yeah, let's wrap this baby up. Appreciate everyone rocking out with us. Salute to the squad, and for the super chat contributions, appreciate everyone. AP, my guy, also coming through. Joey from the Bronx, as well, and AP letting his thoughts be known about this porous defensive play, as well. Now, softer stretch coming up in the schedule. Do we capitalize? I think we have to, right? The Magic are clearly an Achilles kind of team, a bogey team, but I think today was still a 50-50 game if we're at full strength right now. The Magic might be better, addition by subtraction without Paolo in a different kind of way, right? Because you see, if Paolo's playing, Franz Wagner doesn't get that level of usage, you know. But yeah, obviously football, New York football season, man, it's downhill earlier. The Knicks are our hope, fam. Mets, Yankees, flamed out, man. Brooklyn Nets are a dumpster fire. It's up to the New York Knicks to save us this season right now, man. Hope any of y'all other sports teams are doing better right now. But yeah, I'm resting my hopes on the New York Knicks for this season, man. Whatever happens, I need the Knicks to get to the finals. But plenty of moves and adjustments are going to have to be made, and we'll talk about it